In this video, I'm going to show you how I created a globally ranking podcast, which was able to feature in the charts of 40 different countries, taking the #1 spot in 8 of those different countries with zero podcasting experience and doing it whilst being a digital nomad. My name is Elliot Hassoun, and I'm creating this channel to show you that you don't need a big social media following. You don't need studio-like production in order to have a successful podcast. Over the past few years, I've taken my podcast from 0 downloads all the way to almost 400,000 downloads. So in this video, I'm going to share some tips on how I did it and also share my personal journey. I've been a health and fitness coach for the past 10 to 11 years, and in the springtime of 2020, I decided that I wanted to start my own online coaching business. And that's exactly what I did. I left the company I was working for around April of 2020 and launched my business in May of 2020. In the back of my mind, I always knew that I was going to create a podcast. I love the podcasting medium. I had a passion to start. I really didn't know where to start. And also whilst I was working for the other company that I was working for, I didn't really see it as a possibility. However, when I started working on my own, I knew it was going to be something that I did. And it probably would have come earlier. However, I decided that as I was now running an online business, I didn't have to actually be tied to anywhere geographically. So I decided to leave London and the UK, which I'd lived in my entire life up to this point, and start traveling the world. This took me to Portugal, to the UAE, to Colombia, to Mexico, to France, to Italy, to all over the world. And one of the locations that I knew that I was staying for a little while was Portugal. I booked an Airbnb in Lisbon initially for a month. I then ended up staying for 3 months and knew that this would be the perfect time to launch my podcast. So I set myself a deadline, which usually works pretty well for me, that November 1st, I would launch my podcast. But obviously I had no idea where to start, so I just did some research on Google. I tried to find as much information as possible. I recorded my first episode just on my MacBook. I didn't have a microphone or anything like that. I just literally went onto QuickTime Player, I think it was, and hit record and just recorded while speaking into my laptop. I edited that audio on iMovie, and I think I recorded my first few episodes in the kitchen, but found it was very echoey, so then transferred my future episodes into the bathroom to make sure the audio was a little bit better. These were extremely humble beginnings, and I had no idea if this podcast was going to be a success or not. As I mentioned earlier, I have a pretty small audience on Instagram. I think at that time I had about 2,700 followers-ish, which is not really that much on Instagram. I didn't have an email list. I didn't have any other social media platforms really either. But I knew I wanted to do this, so I had to start somewhere. So I started editing my videos. I did a little sketch for the podcast artwork, which you can see on the screen now. I then got that cleaned up a little bit, ready to go. I found a podcast platform, got my RSS feed, and I started doing some social media build up as well. And please remember, I was recording in bathrooms. I've never had a stable location of recording my podcast, even to this day. So it's coming up to the launch date. It's almost November 1st, and I start doing as much build up as possible. And here was the results. On the first day, I was able to achieve 117 downloads. On the second day, I achieved 265 downloads. By the third day, and get this exceeded all of my expectations. I was number 5 on the UK charts. This was my home country, so it was super meaningful for me, and I was not expecting anything like this. By day 13, I had reached my first 1,000 downloads. On February 23rd of 2021, I was ranking in 7 different countries across 2 different categories, and around 2 weeks after that, I reached my first 10,000 downloads in a little less than 5 months of podcasting. Fast forward to today, I've ranked in 40 different countries. I finished the last year on around 300,000 downloads, and considering how good the podcast has been this year, I'm currently sat around 359,000 downloads, and it is only mid-January. And I have to reiterate, this was done with zero podcasting experience. I literally did not know what I was doing with a super small social media following, yet I have a very, very successful podcast today. And this video is not about me bragging or gloating about all of my numbers. This is to show you that you can. Whether you want to start a podcast, or whether you have started one and you maybe fell off a little bit, or maybe you are on that grind, but it's just not taking off in the way that you would want to. And in the next part of this video, I want to share 3 tips that I personally feel contributed massively to my success. The first key that I truly believe helped was that I mixed solo episodes and guest episodes. I had shorter episodes and I had longer episodes as well. My format is very diverse. Every week I have a guest episode, and that goes on for roughly around an hour. But I also do short solo episodes. I started off solo, I did them for around 30 minutes. These days they last between 6 and 12 minutes, and I truly think that based on the diversity of the content, that keeps my audience coming back. Sometimes they might just want to listen to my solo ones, they might only have time to listen to the short ones, and some of my other listeners may only come for the guest episodes. They might like the way that I host the show, but they might not be too interested in the short form. But they have a bunch of different options to choose from. If they like the guest guests, then they can stay for the guests. If they like the solos, they can stay for the solos. If they like both, then it's the best of both worlds. And I really think that has helped my downloads grow and has helped my audience grow. The second key to my success is that I have never missed a week. Every single week for the past 3.5 years, I have uploaded an episode to the Simply Fit podcast. The frequency has varied, but there has never been less than one per week. As of today, I have 441 episodes. I believe it averages out as one podcast every 3 to 4 days or so, and I'll explain exactly how I did that in just a moment too. But my audience has always had something to listen to. They know I'm consistent. They know that they can rely on seeing an upload every single week. And that's something special about podcasting compared to other social media. I've been consistent on Instagram, I've been consistent on YouTube, but I've never seen the same level of growth off the back of consistency. With podcasting, it just seems to compound. And the longer you stick around, the higher your chances of being successful. And I wouldn't say that's the same for Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. You still have to create really good content. You have to be aware of the algorithm changes and everything along those lines. Whereas podcasting, if you stick around long enough and you have consistent uploads and you find your audience, then you're probably going to have some type of success. I've done this with not having a consistent studio or home, as a matter of fact. I move countries every 2 to 3 months. I've got engaged during this time period. I met the love of my life. She now travels with me as well. She's now my fiance. I planned the whole engagement and I was still able to stick to my upload schedule. So it's not easy, but it is super important. And the third big key to my success is at one point during this journey, I did daily uploads. And I did this when my podcast wasn't crazy popular. To give you an example of how this helped, in February 2021, I got around 2,000 downloads for that calendar month, maybe 2,200. My downloads of February 2022 went up to over 12,000. And I attribute a lot of that success to the daily uploads. More total episodes means more that your audience can consume, and that really helps. I did it for 196 days, and I will be creating a separate video on how to do that, and if you want to consider it, how you might be able to do it as well. So I believe that the daily uploads alongside the other two keys were some real major contributors to my success. And the goal this year is to get to 1 million downloads. And I don't necessarily know if I'm going to reach it. Based on January numbers, it's very possible. However, the idea behind it is to create the type of podcast that could achieve 1 million downloads and to also take you on that journey with me. I think it's very exciting. I want to show you the different things that I'm including to kind of go from good to great. So you're going to see a ton of different videos on my personal journey, on growth, on launching, on monetizing as well. So I hope you stick around for the journey. And if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.